Hello and welcome to Crimenetic. I am your host, Olivia Murphy. Today we are going to be discussing a woman named Megan Huntsman. She was able to have a multitude of pregnancies and keep them all hidden from her entire family for many of years. What happened to all those babies? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. In April of 2014, Darren West was released from prison. Upon release, he was excited to be able to return to his previous home owned by his parents, where he would get to continue his life raising his teenage daughters. Upon moving into the home, Darren was excited to go through and rearrange and get rid of old items. Searching through the garage, Darren comes across a box, an odd-looking box labeled Christmas, covered in electrical tape. Upon opening the box, what Darren finds will be so devastating that it is almost impossible to believe that it only gets worse from there.
I'm still in a state of shock. We were wondering what the heck is going on.
Yeah, we were worried about her because we could see that she was not looking in good health. And we were worried about the children that lived there with her. Her three daughters lived there.
She always looked kind of slim. To have this many babies full term, it's like, where were they?
Kelly in Kentucky, hold on. I'm just being joined right now by Chief Michael Smith with the Pleasant Grove Police Department. Chief Smith, thank you for being with us. You know, how does that happen? I mean, maybe once you could fake the world out about your pregnancy, but 7 times?
Blain Huntsman was born in Utah County, Utah in 1950. His father was from Nevada, and his mother, we are unsure, but we think was a Utah native. Growing up in Manila, Blain was active in sports. He loved woodworking, and he was a very family-oriented kid. He grew up in an all-American typical family. From what I can tell, there's no signs of abuse, no mental illness, nothing that would bring any concern in his childhood. Joyce Nielsen was born in 1953. Where is unknown, but we think she is a Utah native. There's not really much background story to Joyce. There are also no signs of abuse in her childhood either. Blain and Joyce married September 16, 1971 in Indian Spring, Nevada. They were both Mormons who were heavily involved in the church. Blain worked as an industrial painter, and Joyce held many types of jobs, including working at a grocery store at one point. The Huntsmans did the best job raising their children that they could. They treated them all fairly. They also got their children heavily involved in the Mormon church. They went to school in nice clothes with popular hairstyles, and they made friends. Megan Huntsman, born February 27, 1975, was the oldest of Blain and Joyce's children. She was very introverted. She was pretty quiet, and she pretty much kept to herself. She graduated high school in 1993. Classmates say they had many sleepovers at Megan's and took hiking trips at a nearby canyon with her family. Megan's siblings and her mother attested that she was extremely shy and quiet. Sometime during Megan's senior year of high school in 1993, she met Darren West. The two must have hit it off because at some point before school ended that year, Megan had become pregnant. According to her family, in that year, she became more quiet, intensely private, and never wanting to ask anyone for help. She was very secretive. Soon after finding out about the pregnancy, Megan and Darren decide that they have decisions to make. They make the choice to get married, and Darren's parents gladly offer a modest house in Pleasant Grove, Utah, for the couple to start their family in. By the end of 1993, Megan had given birth to her first daughter, Darian. From what sources say, Megan's pregnancy with Darian was hidden up until the point of her due date. She kept it a secret from almost everyone until it was time to give birth. After Darren graduated, he joined the Marine Reserves and was going to college at Utah Valley Community College. While staying in the modest home that Darren's parents provided the couple, Darren and Megan had their first daughter, Darian, and then, in the year after, 1994, they had their second daughter, JC. Darren eventually took a construction job, and Megan started cleaning houses and babysitting for extra money. From the outside in, things seemed to be going great for the new family. Their life was starting, they had a future to look forward to, but nobody knew the horrors that were to come. After the birth of JC in 1994, Darren and Megan began experimenting or exploring different types of drugs. Eventually, this exploration turned into a full-blown methamphetamines addiction. Now both parents were struggling with a major addiction using every day. Megan later quoted, saying, "Her addiction was all-consuming." According to Megan, the marriage fell into, quote, substance abuse and violence, unquote. According to close friends, she had black eyes and was scared to tell anyone. Her uncle said it was pretty severe. She would not come around for long periods of time. It should be noted, police never received any domestic dispute or domestic violence calls from the home. Another important thing to remember is that the family also never knew about their addiction. So with a meth addiction, which can be different from person to person, obviously, generally people have mood swings, anxiety, euphoria, social isolation. They're impulsive and dangerous. They get violent, aggressive. They have extreme insomnia. They stay up for days. Some don't eat for extended periods of time. They have hair loss, sores from picking their skin. Sometimes it gets as serious as hallucinating and so much worse. And at that time, her family had no idea any of that was even going on. Another thing that I find quite shocking is that Megan and Darren were able to raise 2 other children in this time period. And then in the year 2000, Megan became pregnant again. She did also try and hide this pregnancy as long as possible. People began to notice, and Megan realized that she was going to have to go through with this pregnancy. In 2000, Megan and Darren have their third daughter, Sawyer. And all throughout this time, Megan and Darren are heavily addicted to methamphetamines. I'm not sure whether she stopped for her pregnancy or she kept using during the pregnancy, but None of her family or friends knew they had a heavy meth addiction and 3 children in the home. But from what outside sources say, the children seem to be doing well in the home. So this meth addiction continues on for years, and in 2006, Darren is actually caught receiving ingredients in bulk from manufacturers to make methamphetamines. The law enforcement ended up finding out. They came to the home. Megan let them in, and they did a small search of the home, finding drug paraphernalia, and they arrested Darren and ended up convicting him of drug crimes, which landed him in prison for quite a few years. Now that Darren is gone, Megan no longer has her methamphetamine supplier, so she can no longer do methamphetamines, so she turns to alcohol as her new addiction. For a while, Megan has a very bad alcohol addiction, and her family and friends are noticing this. Upon Darren going to prison, Darren's parents told Megan that her and her daughters were welcome to stay in the home. As long as Megan remained faithful to Darren, Darren's parents were happy to have her in their home while Darren did his prison sentence. Megan eventually meets a man. His name is Jimmy. She begins seeing him. Darren's parents find out that Megan is seeing another man, and they ask her to move out of their home. At this point, right around the same time, Megan's mother got a diagnosis of cancer, so she asked her to just come and stay with her, which Megan did for a while. A year or so later, Megan's father has some kind of medical illness that is causing him chronic pain that he's unable to live with, and he ends up committing suicide. The devastation of the loss of her father sends Megan into an alcoholic spiral. Her mom begs her to go into a treatment program. Eventually, Megan reluctantly agrees to go into the treatment program, which she eventually does complete. After completing her treatment for her alcoholism, she ends up getting back with her boyfriend Jimmy. She moves in with him, and from that point, life is pretty good. Megan ends up getting a job, and at some point, Megan and Jimmy find out that they are pregnant. At this point, Jimmy remembers sitting down and talking with Megan about their options and their choices, what they should do, how this would affect their lives, and they didn't make any decision then, but they did talk about it. So, later on, Megan ends up telling Jimmy that she did miscarry. Jimmy says that Megan seems upset by the miscarriage, and they move on with their life. In April of 2014, Darren West is released from prison. Upon release, he is hoping to stay in the home his parents own that his teenage daughters are now living in, to reconnect with his daughters and move on with his life. Upon moving into the house, he is clearing out the garage, and he discovers a box labeled Christmas with electrical tape on the outside. Inside of the box, Darren discovers the lifeless body of an infant. Shocked and appalled, he immediately calls 911. Police soon arrive at the residence, and they begin searching the house and the garage. What police find in that garage is one of the most awful and appalling things I have ever heard in my life. The crimes Megan Huntsman had committed were absolutely appalling.
Charges after police found the remains of 7 babies inside her former home. Andrew Spencer reports neighbors were very shocked by the news.
Over the course of 10 years, police say Megan Huntsman gave birth to, then killed, at least 6 babies. The remains were found inside this home in Pleasant Grove, Utah, a small city just north of Provo. Huntsman moved out of the house in 2011. It belongs to the family of her estranged husband.
Some family members of the residents were cleaning out the garage, came across a suspicious package, had kind of a pungent odor.
That led to a full-scale search in which police found the remains of 7 dead babies, a disturbing thought especially for the neighbors.
After giving birth to Darian in 1993 and JC in 1994, Megan had become pregnant multiple times. Out of fear or embarrassment, Megan decided to hide these pregnancies. She soon started wearing baggy clothes. She would stay at home constantly, and neighbors, family, and friends rarely saw her. She hid her pregnancies well enough that it is disputed whether her husband, Darren, knew that she was pregnant.
Well, this is such a strange case because apparently she had these babies over a 10-year period when her husband they were living together. This is before he went to prison. There were other children in the home. And apparently no one, from the other children to her husband to the neighbors, ever knew she was pregnant, or at least said they knew she was pregnant. They were all very shocked to find out that there were babies there. So I'm not sure how you can deliver 6 babies to term and nobody knows about it and nobody knows you're actually delivering a baby. There's so many pieces to this one that just doesn't make sense. And now we find out that she was using meth and that she was an alcoholic. There's a bunch of different ways, and everybody's just waiting to see what the defense is in this case because it's got to be something. Whether it's, mental illness or she was being abused, because as soon as the husband went to prison, this all stopped. No more babies, no more nothing, and then
there's no babies to kill if she isn't sleeping with him.
Well, that's right, but there's other.
Maybe she killed off. Yeah, but he's the only one whose baby she wanted to kill.
So you just don't know what the dynamic is. Was it because
Upon going into labor, Megan would go to the bathroom of her home, deliver the baby privately. After delivering the baby, Megan had to decide whether she could raise this baby and stop her addiction, or whether her addiction was so strong that she would choose the addiction over the baby. Megan soon made a choice that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She pressed her 2 thumbs against her baby's throat and choked her to death. Shortly after choking the baby to death, she put a hair tie around the baby's neck to, quote, make sure that it was dead. After killing her newborn infant, she wrapped the baby in a piece of material, cloth, sometimes sweater, put the baby in a shoebox, put the shoebox inside of a bigger box labeled Christmas, and taped it up with electrical tape. She then took the box to her garage, put it in there for storage, and went back to clean up her mess. It is unclear whether or not Darren and her other daughters were home when she gave birth, but we do know that no one saw or heard her deliver and then kill her baby. Megan repeated this a couple of times before she had Sawyer in 2000. One of these times, it is said that Darren, his brother, and his brother's wife were all in her living room watching TV when Megan went into labor, went into the bathroom, delivered a baby, killed the baby, stored the baby, cleaned up her labor mess, and then went back and watched TV, all without anyone ever having any inclination that she was doing any of this. After the birth of Sawyer in the year 2000, Megan became pregnant 5 more times. That's about once a year that she gave birth in her bathroom or her bed, murdering the infant and cleaning it up. Darren did suspect a couple times that Megan had been pregnant, but she quickly put that to rest and told him she had miscarried. But Darren also has been quoted saying, "I knew she was pregnant, but I was so messed up on freaking drugs, I did not know what was going on." all the babies Megan Huntsman delivered were full-term babies. After autopsies, it was found out that one of the babies had actually died during the birthing process, and that baby was a stillborn. Altogether, Megan Huntsman had delivered 5 baby girls and 2 baby boys in a 10-year period, concealing all of their bodies in boxes in her garage for years. What is the most shocking to me is that Megan could have chose many other options other than killing her newborn babies. She could have had an abortion early on. She could have tried to find a way to deal with adoption. The biggest, kicker to me, at the time in Utah, there were things called safe haven hospitals. So at the safe haven hospital, essentially what a parent of an unwanted baby would do is they would go to the safe haven hospital. These hospitals were open 24/7. You would drop the baby off. Then inside the hospital, they would take the baby to the emergency room, check up on the baby, make sure the baby was in good health. At that point, they would call social services where they would set up an adoption. It was very discreet. They never reported any of the parents that dropped off the babies. It was called a safe haven law. These hospitals were called safe haven hospitals, and they stayed open 24 hours a day for situations like this. She would have never been reported. She could have turned in all 6 of these babies with no consequences. And instead, Megan Huntsman decided to murder 6 of her own children. It is absolutely baffling to me that a person could even make that kind of a choice. So, after Darren called the police to the residence upon finding the dead infant in the box, he then called Megan. He told Megan what he found, and Megan explained to him it was an accident. She had a baby. She was scared. She said, please don't call the police. He informed her that he already had, and she then asked Jimmy to please get her a gun. Megan eventually pled guilty to 6 charges of murder. Megan Huntsman knew what she did. She knew that she was guilty. She knew that she murdered 6 of her children. While raising 3, she murdered 6 others. Megan Huntsman is a monster.
Chief?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have the same question, and I agree. You know, one thing to fake the world out, but to fake your own family and husband out is another. And that is an area that we continue to probe into to try to get those answers.
You know, Chief Smith, Kelly in Kentucky wants to know, was it the husband that originally found the first dead body? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Wow, and he probably didn't think that this is connected to his wife, so he calls about the one dead body in the cardboard box. With me is Chief Michael Smith out of Pleasant Grove joining us tonight. But where were the other bodies hidden, Chief Smith?
They were in the same area. They stopped once they found the infant. They stopped what they were doing and called the police, and we responded, and through our investigation found the other infants in the same area the first one was located.
And Chief Smith, are you telling me that the husband says he never knew his wife was pregnant 7 times?
Yes, that's the information that we have.
Okay, that is a little hard to take in, Chief Smith. Chief, another question. There are 7 tiny bodies, but only 6 homicide charges. What about the 7th infant?
There's information that we have that one of them was possibly stillborn. The infants are at the medical examiners as we speak, and as that investigation unfolds, hopefully we'll be able to determine if well, how that baby died, and if we need to amend charges at that point, we will.
You know, Chief Smith, I'm just bowled over.
She was always a good babysitter because she babysat my grandchildren when they were little.
We had no idea, absolutely no idea what it could have been.
Some also found it odd that they didn't notice Huntsman had ever been pregnant.
We always thought she looked skinny. We never saw any evidence of pregnancies.
The 39-year-old was booked into the Utah County Jail. Police say they searched her current home as well, but they didn't find anything noteworthy there. I'm Andrew Spencer reporting.
And prosecutors say the 39-year-old Huntsman is being jailed on 6 counts of murder. It appears a 7th baby was stillborn.
Cases like the case of Megan Huntsman just go to show that the people that you trust and love the most can deceive you more than anybody, or just as much as anybody in the entire world. And murder can go on right behind your back, right behind closed doors, without you knowing. It is very easy for someone to deceive you. If you find true crime as interesting as we do, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell as well, of course. And thank you again for joining us. We will see you next week.